good morning, Attack the Rack fans. This is the Attack the Rack Monday morning live show with your host. That's me, Curt Van Hecken. Hopefully, this is a good way to get your week started here. It is Monday, August the 12th, and we are kicking off another week here at the Attack the Rack YouTube channel. We've got a big week coming up. Over the weekend, we started releasing our fantasy football preview episodes, and that is with our fantasy football guru, Corey Walters. So we've released so far our quarterback rankings, and then we did running backs. So quarterbacks came out on Friday, and running backs came out on Sunday. And then we also had on the podcast this past Saturday morning with myself and Big Mo, we also interviewed Corey Walters talking a little bit of fantasy football. So coming up later this week on Friday, this coming Friday, we will release the next episode of the fantasy football preview, and that will be wide receivers. And then Sunday, we will finish it up with tight ends. So we're doing quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, and tight ends, all with our fantasy football guru, Mr. Corey Walters. So we got to give a huge thanks to Corey Walters for spending some time putting together all his research for this upcoming 2024 fantasy football season, which is right around the corner. People are starting to have their drafts now, as week one is just 4 weeks away, less than that, a little bit less than 4 weeks away. College football, just 2.5 weeks away. So football is upon us. And last week we had our first episode of Hard Knocks. We talked about Hard Knocks quite a bit last week on the channel. Speaking of the channel, just a reminder, obviously, Monday mornings I go live at 7 a.m. And then if you're not able to catch the show live, just so you know for the future, no big deal. This does upload as a regular video right upon the conclusion of the stream. And then Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, we have our daily lineup show talking about the most up-to-date 3, 4, 5 topics in the world of sports. That's myself, Big Mo, and Trent. And then Saturday mornings, 9 a.m., we have the Attack the Rack podcast with myself and Big Mo, which again, this past Saturday, we had Corey Walters on as a guest talking fantasy football. Next Saturday, really great interview. We actually just recorded it yesterday with Mr. Steve Edson. Steve Edson is a longtime basketball coach and teacher here in the West Michigan area. Great friend of both myself and Big Mo. And we had a really, really great interview with him talking about his 30 years in coaching, talking about some of the highs and the lows, talking about how things have changed over those 30 years. You know, and what's interesting about Coach Edson's coaching career is he spent the entire 30 years mostly coaching JV basketball. He did have a couple of years coaching freshmen, but for the most part, 30 years as a JV coach. So one thing we talked about was, did you ever have that desire to bump up and coach varsity at all? And, he really never did. And I can relate to that. I coached 20 years high school basketball, all at the lower levels, some middle school, some JV, and then a lot of time spent as a varsity assistant as well. Never had that desire either. So can totally relate to Steve on that. But one other interesting thing about over the course of those 30 years, again, mentioning he spent most of that time as a JV coach. He worked under 5 different varsity head coaches over that time frame. So we talked a little bit about what that was like. Every few years, all of a sudden you got a new regime coming in. And so we talked a little bit about that as well. And speaking of that interview in the podcast, we're going to try to, Big Mo and I are going to try to, can't guarantee it'll be every episode, but we're going to try to incorporate an interview with somebody into that Saturday morning podcast. What a weekend for USA basketball at the Olympics. Both the men's team and the women's team took home gold medals, and both over France. The men won 98-87 on Saturday. What a great game, physical game. Reminded me of some old school NBA basketball. Just a slugfest, super close, back and forth for quite a while. And then Steph Curry just took over late in the game. In the last few minutes of the game, I think he hit 4 threes. He had 8 threes total, 24 points, all on three-pointers. What a game. What a run for the U.S. men. Wasn't easy, right? Wasn't easy in their semifinal game. They just about lost to Serbia. So it's safe to say the world is catching up quite a bit to the U.S. But, when push comes to shove, the U.S., they still have a team full of NBA players, and these other teams have just a couple, 2, 3, 4. So until the other teams have a roster full of NBA players, I would think the USA will continue to be the favorite to win gold medal each and every year. But certainly the games are much more competitive now and much more fun to watch. It's fun to watch the other games as well, not just the U.S. games. So that makes everything revolving basketball at the Olympics a lot better. The women on Sunday yesterday, yikes, incredibly ugly game. Tons of turnovers, tons of missed layups. Squeaked away with a 67-66 victory. France actually led the game in as late as the third quarter by 10 points. And the U.S. had to battle back. The last 17.4 seconds of that game were crazy. Starting with an inbounds on the sideline. U.S. was up 63-59. France then scores 7 points in the last 17.4 seconds and has a shot at the buzzer to win the game. They're down by, to send it into overtime. They're down by 3. They hit a deep 2 at the buzzer. Girl's shot or feet were just on that 3-point line, making it a 2-point basket. Which then resulted in a 1-point loss for them. Had she been just a touch further back and made it a 3, game would have went into overtime. So what an incredible finish to that game. AJ Wilson, she led the U.S. with 21 points, didn't play great. USA, again, 2 for 12 from 3-point range. They struggled to shoot the ball the entire tournament, never really, could get into a good rhythm with the 3 ball. U.S. women, though, they now have won 8 gold medals in a row. That's pretty incredible. And, outside of that scare from France, it's a little bit different from the men's side, where the rest of the world really doesn't seem to necessarily be catching up to the U.S. But wow, France, they certainly looked pretty good and definitely gave them a run for their money. The win also does bring the USA women's winning streak to 61 straight games in Olympic play. That's incredible. And then one last thing about the Olympics, it's over. It's been fun. But at the same time, it's like, all right, I'm kind of ready to move on, get back into the regular WNBA season and obviously football. But one last thing, there's never an Olympics that goes by without some drama, some judge errors, whether it's figure skating, gymnastics. There's always something, and this year and the Summer Olympics in Paris was no different. USA gymnast Jordan Childs. So this is pretty interesting. So how did this all go down? So she, um, according to the U.S., was not judged fairly. So she finished in fourth place, and then the U.S. protested that decision, claiming that she was not scored fairly because she wasn't scored based on the level of difficulty of what she was doing. And so then the judges came back and said, "Oh, you're right," and then it gave her what they felt was the actual accurate score based on what she was doing, which then did award her the bronze medal. However, I forget which country it was that actually had originally won the bronze, but then they came back and they appealed it and said, "Hey, wait a minute. The U.S. appealed the decision past. There's like a 1 minute window where you can appeal, and they were 4 seconds past that 1 minute window when the U.S. appealed the decision. So then it got reversed, and they stripped Jordan Childs of that bronze medal. Now it sounds like the U.S. is going to appeal it again, and so it could be a little while until we find out who actually won that bronze medal. But pretty interesting. Again, there's always something revolving, some judging issues at both the Winter Olympics and the Summer Olympics. Again, this year no different. We'll see how this plays out. But as I was saying, I'm kind of ready for the Olympics to kind of be gone. Not to take away anything from the Olympics. It was fun. I actually watched the women's and men's breakdancing. That was pretty cool. But I am ready to get back into, watching Caitlin Clark play again. And then obviously football. Football is here. Preseason well underway. But speaking of the WNBA and Caitlin Clark, WNBA back in action now, starting Thursday. So they got a few days. The women that played overseas here in the Olympics in Paris, they've got a couple days only to recover and get back with their teams. And Thursday night, WNBA action is back. And Caitlin Clark and the Fever, though, they do not play Thursday. They play Friday night. So Caitlin Clark's first game back Friday night against the Mercury team. I think they beat them twice already. Both times the Mercury were not at full strength. They had an injury, here or there. In fact, the last time, Deanna Taurasi did not play at all, and Brittany Griner went down early. But it appears everyone's healthy. Diana Taurasi didn't play at all in the gold medal game, limited minutes the entire Olympics, not due to injury. So she's healthy. So Friday night, Fever, Mercury, both teams should be at full strength. Should be a fun way to get back into WNBA action. And then speaking of the Indiana Fever, Caitlin Clark, Dave Portnoy back at it again with a bet. He bet $100,000 on the Fever to win the championship. Indiana Fever plus 10,000. So his bet will pay out $10.1 million if the Fever win the WNBA championship. Dave Portnoy on quite a run. I can't even know if I can remember everything that in the last 7-8 months he's successfully bet on, but I know there was the Michigan-Alabama game. He went over $1 million on the Boston Celtics. There's been two, I think one or two other huge bets where he's won over $1 million on, and we'll see if his streak continues with the Indiana Fever and Caitlin Clark. They started out slow, right? They've started out slow, but they were playing almost like every other night, hardly had any practices. It's like the WNBA just was like, let's throw Caitlin Clark out there. Let's get her on TV. Let's try to get viewership. And they definitely struggled out the gate, but they've been playing really well. And now they've had, I'm sure they weren't practicing this whole break. Obviously, we've seen Caitlin Clark all over the place. But hopefully they've had some time to have some practices and continue to kind of get into that rhythm. And they look really good. And it's not just Caitlin Clark. The other guard, now I can't even think of her name, 3-point shooter. She's playing well. And then Aaliyah Boston has been playing very, very well. So you never know. Plus, they've beaten and competed with some of the best teams in the league. And so you never know. Right now, I think they're the 7th playoff team out of 8. So maybe they can, spend the rest of the season here. I think they got maybe like another month or so until the playoffs. Try to bump up maybe a couple other spots to make their first, second round games a little bit easier. And you never know. Obviously, again, they've beaten and competed with the best teams in the league. So it's not really that big of a long shot, I don't think. Obviously, Vegas it still has them at plus 10,000, so that's not great. But we'll see. Excited to get back into it Friday night. Again, Indiana Fever versus the Phoenix Mercury. So, and that will do it today. I got no birthdays. No birthdays. Come on, people. Email us at attacktherack3333@gmail.com to give us some birthday shout outs. It's fun. I like having birthday shout outs. I like looking up the celebrities that also share that birthday. So if you have a birthday shout out coming up in the next week or so, shoot me an email, attacktherack3333@gmail.com. Let me know the day and the person's name. We'll give them a birthday shout out here on the program, and we will highlight who they share a birthday with. I hope everyone has a great week. Kicked off here with a great Monday. Don't forget, every Monday we come here live, 7 a.m., Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday night, 7 p.m. We have our daily lineup show with myself, Big Mo, and Trent. And then Saturday mornings, we've got the Attack the Rack podcast with myself and Big Mo. And then also, again, reminder, we have released our fantasy football preview quarterbacks episode. We've also released running backs. That is with our fantasy football guru, Corey Walters. And then coming this Friday, we will release wide receivers. And next Sunday, tight ends. So hopefully that will help you as you prepare for your fantasy football draft. We will see you next Monday.